Michelle?
Daniel,
OG
OG
Rose?
Rose, and Michelle. What are you thinking about?
Well, thank you for asking. I guess I was just thinking about I was thinking about a lot of stuff, Daniel, but I guess let me distill it to three things, and you can pick which one you like. Which one do you want to talk about? So when I was thinking about motivation, I was thinking about like the fact that I will clean the house so much more expediently and efficiently if I know that somebody is coming to the house. Like, it's just I mean, it's like, "Oh, hands on deck." Like, I recruit the kids and we're just doing our thing. I'm like, "Okay, we gotta get done by this time." Never mind the fact that, like, shouldn't I just normally want the house to be tidy and clean and peaceful and calm? And I do try to keep the house decent, right? But it's just there's something about the proportion of stuff on counters or just out. It's like the higher that goes, like, the higher your sense of overwhelm.
Mm,
And it's just strange how much spaces and we talk a lot
oh
about
yeah,
spaces,
yeah,
design,
yeah.
and how much literally the what is around you can affect your mood so much. And I think for certain people it might be more than other people, but I think everyone's affected to a degree. So I was just thinking about that. I'm like, how can I I mean, it's great. It was really nice. It's funny because the guests that stopped by didn't even come in the house. Like it was nice in there. If they wanted to, they could have come in and it would have been tidy. And well, it was tidy, and but we all benefited from it, you know. And it's like there's sort of a part of me that's like all of my, as a mother and a wife, you're also a host. Like you're all working together to be host to others, which is a blessing and a gift. And I do feel that I feel most motivation when we are hosting people, right?
Yeah.
Or like I know somebody's going to stop by. Um, but then and that can be a good thing. That can maybe even be part of a gift. But then there's also the fact that I'm making a space for our children and you and us all the time. So then why that is an imperative in and of itself, is it not? Or even just for myself, I feel better with it being cleaner. And children, I don't know how I think they do have some sort of gauge on that as well, but they might be I don't know, it depends.
Sure.
Sometimes they may be more or less conscious or aware about it, but I think they still feel it too. They'll definitely feel it through your energy as
Right.
well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So it's just sort of like why what is going on in that situation where I can literally make stuff happen out of nowhere.
Hmm.
Like this is the interesting thing about energy too, right?
Yes,
Like
yes, yes.
suddenly, because I was thinking about it, I was like, literally, you got something done that when you just thought about, because I wanted to do that anyway. This was yesterday, Monday.
Right.
I was like, I just kind of want to reset and get everything kind of like, I don't know why I didn't get to some of my regular kind of tidying up on
Sure.
the weekend. So then I wanted to get that done as a part of just us doing life. And yet the thought of doing it just seemed almost impossible on top of the other things that needed to get done that day. And but then how can it go from something feeling like it almost is insurmountable to being completely possible with an external presence
Yeah,
or an
yeah,
external
yeah,
pressure?
yeah.
So that's crazy because I'm just like that again, there can be good to that. You can fabricate that or you can encourage it so that you get your stuff done. But why can't you just get your stuff done? And you do eventually. It just might take a little longer. But like when you know it's just you wanting to do it. And I don't know if this goes back to kind of our want conversation because it's like I did want to do it. So why wasn't that enough to make that an imperative? And
Right.
really, once we kind of again, we're very blessed with helpful, wonderful children who are very capable. So we just divide and conquer, and it gets done in not very much time.
Hmm.
Maybe 15 minutes really to tidy up. I'm not talking about deep cleaning or anything like that, but yeah, it can get done pretty swiftly. So the long and the short of it is what's going on there? What? Then the other thing I thought about, sorry, really quick,
Please.
the second thing I've been thinking about is like how I sometimes have it's this interesting relationship with the existence of social media,
Mm.
where some days it sort of feels like, wow, there are these people who can be inspiring and encouraging on there, and then sometimes I'm like, I just hope that's all a nightmare. I hope I wake up one day and that never existed because it just feels like there's such a wild thing going on where it's like the things that you see that should kind of encourage you are one more thing stacked against you and what you aren't doing yet or haven't accomplished yet or want to do and aren't doing or whatever. So that's my love hate with social media. So anyways, those are some of the things I've been thinking about, Dan.
No, those are
What about
great.
you?
Those outstanding. There is it is incredible to me how something that takes 5 minutes is easy to put off for months.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, oh, I really need
Like in
to.
your head, it's so much bigger.
Yeah, and also
So
you're always just about to do it.
yeah.
And then it compounds and it compounds and it compounds. Like, how does your desk get to be a disaster? And then you're like, I really need to do that, I really need to do it, and you don't. And then something happens where you do, and it takes like 5 minutes. and you're and it was impossible. And then it's you get it done. It's very strange.
Hmm.
There is something about life where stuff becomes so there's a few things. So there's something about life where stuff becomes invisible. Like, the garage is a disaster, your office gets to be a disaster, it's invisible. Contexts that are away from this home. You there are boxes that have been there since 1973
Yeah.
that no one has touched. It's an empty box. It could be thrown away, but it's just
There.
left.
It's just
It
there.
becomes invisible. And there's something, and I think this
Mm.
is a very universal thing. This is
Yeah.
not just a personality. Like, there is something weird where stuff just becomes invisible.
But that's the weird thing, Dan. If it was invisible, why would it bother people? Like, I feel actively different. Like,
Mhm.
I phenomenologically feel different
Mhm.
when things are tidy
Mhm.
or when they're not. And I think you can become a monster about it and, like,
Sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
everything has to be tidy or I'm
Yeah.
going to blow
Blow
up.
up.
And
Right.
that's just wrong. Like, you do need to
Right.
be able to be adaptable and
Uh-huh.
know how to be okay,
Yeah.
even when stuff's messy or whatever.
Mhm.
But there is also the element of you feel a difference. I feel a difference. And so
Yes.
it's like if it were just invisible, yes, in a sense it's invisible because I know what you're saying. There's probably been
Mm.
definitely been stuff on
Just
the shelf
strange.
that's
Yeah.
just there. It's been there for months. Who knows
Yeah.
why?
Yeah.
Right. But it's weird. It's almost like this. I don't know. It's not in it is invisible, but it still has a presence there
Yeah, yeah,
anyway.
yeah, 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 yeah.
And it makes like and I do wonder if certain contexts would have a different relationship to like if it's a workspace you come and go from there so you don't sort of see it as like the place that you're
Sure.
always kind
Sure.
of
Sure.
looking at or around or something like that or maybe you are it depends on like your ratio of work to home life or whatever but um yeah I think there's just something about if it was invisible why would it make somebody feel different to be in the sort of
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I
yeah.
mean, I think there's something where it's invisible, then you glimpse it, and you go, "Oh, I need to," and then it's invisible again, like it
Mm,
glimmers in and out, kind of thing.
yeah.
But it becomes invisible in the sense of it only appears to you long enough to remind you it's not done.
Mm,
And then it like it's almost in your subconscious as a kind of weight, like it's in focus, out of focus, you're in this kind of ambiguous space, right?
mhm.
So I think, so to me, that whole example that you give, I think, is pointing to, in a sense, the mystery of motivation. Like, how do you
Yeah.
motivate yourself to
Yeah.
do something?
When there's so much conversation around feeling
Yeah.
feeling motivated and yeah one could also say well it doesn't matter how you feel you just have to do the thing and
Yeah.
that's fine. I'm just so bewildered and that's why mystery is a good word for it. Bewildered by how you're literally you have a different energy.
Yeah, the energy comes out
The
nowhere.
energy kind of yeah just comes out of nowhere and you're like
Mhm.
we all got we're
Yeah.
suddenly like boom 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 you're
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
doing the things you need to do that you really needed to do anyway but then
Yeah.
so
Well,
what what and can you create that energy again we said it that out of nowhere but it kind of didn't come out of nowhere it came from the
from the
fact that you'd have an
externality.
external
Yeah.
yeah can
Mhm.
you create that kind of out of nowhere energy
I will.
at will like and without the
Yes.
external presence and pressure. I mean a lot of our systematic ways about being in the world which is fine do often rely on that external
Yes.
presence and pressure right you have a deadline
Mhm.
you have your teacher's going to look at your homework like you
Mhm.
so you always just say yeah like I know they're going to look at it so I'm going to do it right I'm
Yeah.
going to whatever what if nobody was looking
Yeah. Yeah.
and would you still do it and that's where I think we talked about this with creative work but like you I feel like I've made a lot of decisions to do stuff when nobody is going to necessarily look at it like in the sense that you do the work any type of work you do that wasn't assigned to you basically is stuff you're going to do regardless of some if people would look at it or not or if a teacher is going to look at it or
Mhm.
not. I think that the feature of it feels particularly strong when it might be somebody in a bit more of an authority or maybe elders or I don't know. There's something here too because you could also put on a gradient scale right like how do you feel when your sister's going to come by
Yeah.
versus when your uncle you don't see that much but is going to come by versus this person like there could be different gauges of that or like and I do think though there's something strange about familiarity which has less pressure
Yeah.
which is
Mhm.
understandable right you have more
Mhm.
understanding with each other but like when you don't aren't as familiar with people you I don't know, maybe it just goes back to monkey brain where or like lizard brain where you're like, I don't know how I'll be judged or not. You don't know. So you just go on the safe side of I just
Mhm,
should take care of all that
mhm,
stuff. I don't
mhm.
know. So I'm just gonna throw it back to you, but those are
Yeah,
some thoughts
there's
that come to
also
mind.
though, if you don't see them as much, you wanna make it count. You want to make the
Yeah. You're like,
experience
this is the
count.
one time this year they're gonna see my
Yeah,
home and be
yeah,
here,
you
so
want
I
it to
wanted
be
to
something they remember as nice
yeah.
and a good experience, so there's also that. Yeah, I think
Mhm.
you're pointing to a lot. I guess one of the reasons I highlight the invisibility
Yeah.
part of this is because people, yeah, they'll say, "Well, just do it." But you can't just do something that's invisible to you.
Mhm.
Like, that's why that advice doesn't tend to work, even though
Mhm.
it's true in a
Yeah.
certain way, because you don't okay, well, just do it. Just clean your house. You look, and it's almost like you can't see it. It's almost like you
It's
can't
just
see it.
I think that people will get a kick out of this. I'll just like dog on myself, whatever the term is. Like, but sometimes we know that we're gonna have be entertaining or having people or whatever, and then Daniel's like, okay, so we just have to do this, this, and this, or like clean the house, and I'm just like, clean what? Like it's like, what do you mean? Like what? And it's just hilarious. Like there's obvious stuff that like steps that need to be taken, and it could just be that my mind it's like I need the specific steps or I need to create for myself the specific steps when it's like the ambiguous
But that, I think, is getting at the issue.
abstract where it's
Yes.
like clean the house. Like you
The
either go into deep mode like the mode of like, oh, I can't do that all, that's so much. So then you just think, oh, must be nothing more to do, right? Because it's mostly clean. But then if you really looked at it, it's like, no, there's some stuff that needs to get cleaned up.
but I think you're pointing
Yeah.
to the address of motivation,
Mhm.
which is there's something about necessity
Yeah.
and
Particularity.
particularization.
Hmm.
Now, we've talked with Robert Olson Butler that good writing particularizes. You
Mm-hmm.
don't just say it's nice outside. You say that the sun was gleaming through the spring leaves that were just tinted green onto the dewy grass.
Hmm.
Like suddenly it's an image. You can see it, right?
Right.
There's something about we can't be motivated unless we have an image or something specific, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a relationship between necessity and particularity. Like if you know people are coming over, there's a pressure, and then you can suddenly see things like suddenly things in
Yeah,
their
and those things
particularity
things
comes out,
absolutely come
right?
into focus where, yeah, suddenly you're like, ah, this goes there, this goes there.
Yeah.
You see the things and you start doing the things actively.
So it creates focus.
Mm,
And the weird thing is focus creates visibility. Like a
mm,
lot of people use the word focus as if everything's visible and you just focus on it. No, there's
mm.
something about like focus that makes the thing visible.
I
It
want,
makes it seeable from a background where everything blurs together. And this logic applying to cleaning, I think, applies to everything. But what were you going to say?
Well, I think there's also something different about sitting. Like I remember me being like, "What do you mean cleaning?" Like this was us having a conversation on the porch. So again, even that is a bit abstracted from the inside space or the what are the things that need to be done. Like I'm thinking about the fact that especially when people are just on their way, right? Suddenly it's kind of a little more impromptu and it's going to happen in the next maybe 2 to 3 hours. Um, and you like that action or that motion is in play. So then you're already like, I need to,
Hmm.
you start to be in the motion of it versus it be the abstract idea. And I don't know if it's just again kind of this um I mean procrastination could be for lack of a better word, but again, you're going to get you're in high gear when you have
The
t
deadline.
minus x
Yeah.
whatever versus okay they're going to come day after tomorrow or something like that.
Hmm. Hmm.
And again it's just I don't know if this is just the human trying to save energy or what it is, but the idea of being able to just motivate yourself as if somebody was going to come by
Yes.
at
At any
2 or
point,
whatever, yeah,
it would be like
or
a superpower. If you could literally
yeah,
do
if
it
you
at
could
will.
literally motivate yourself, and maybe that could be relying too much on the feeling, or like, because I don't know if it's a feeling, but it's just suddenly a drive, right? You're just doing it. You're
Hmm.
you're like doing. You have the energy. You're doing the thing that you needed to do anyway, and you wanted to do anyway.
Well, critically as well, I should note that it would be a superpower that's not really about some sort of optimization for some new tech startup or whatever, right? Because
Mhm.
that's the problem. All this stuff of motivation and meaning and efficiency is in service of, a business outcome or something. But really, literally, you feel better. Literally, you feel more human when
Mhm.
you get
Mhm.
this drive. And because you get
Yeah.
stuff and it actually creates an environment where the energy is flowing and you're more alive and
Yeah.
it's more beautiful. So it's
Mhm.
important to
Mhm.
first, I
Mhm.
think, connect this question of motivation to increasing beauty.
Beauty. I think that's
Not,
important.
yeah, because otherwise people would just another podcast about optimization or whatever for your startup,
Mhm.
which is fine, but I think it gets captured too easily by quantifiable metrics. We're talking about there's a capacity that human beings have to suddenly be motivated, to create more beauty, to make them feel better, to make them feel more human.
Mm.
And is there a way to tap into that at will, or is it random? Or is it are you not able to tap into it?
Well,
Is it a
random.
willpower thing?
What makes me think actually how to map this over how well this actually maps over to beauty and creativity
And
because
the desire stuff from last week as well, I
yeah,
think.
absolutely. Because I'm thinking about this idea of, you said randomly, but again, it's not so random. You know what it is. It was because somebody texted you and said, we might, we're going to stop by
Sure,
this
I
time.
suppose I meant random in the sense of you don't
Well,
know
but
when
that's the thing,
somebody's.
though. It's like people. This is how people sometimes relate to creativity and the muse, right? Well, I'll
Yeah,
just
yes.
hope it
Yeah,
shows
yeah,
up,
yeah. Yeah,
and so
yeah.
you just kind of are hoping somebody randomly stops by, so that you would then get the motivation,
Sure.
versus
Yeah,
being
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
oh, I'm going to do the work every day, whether somebody shows up or not.
Yep. Mhm.
And
Mhm.
then if they do show up, it's ready.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It's
Mhm.
it's here. So
Yeah, there's a
yeah,
parallel there.
yeah. I think there's. I guess I'm just equating that to somebody randomly text messaging you about stopping by or calling or whatever,
Uh-huh.
versus the hoping the muse just shows up. You know.
Yes, well, so there's a few.
And I do think the muse can show up. I mean, obviously, people can
Yes.
still randomly do that. But the thing is, what are you doing systematically? And this is why it goes to the design element that we
Yeah.
talked about with in our conversation on one. What is the certain designs that are at play that create and maintain, that sense of order and I mean, also going through, just a practical thing. I mean, when there's less to manage, less stuff, then you also have less of a chance of it getting to the
Yes.
overwhelm. It's much
Yeah.
simpler to put things away, whatever.
Yeah,
But it's
yeah,
just
yeah. I guess I'm thinking not to interrupt,
no,
but I
no,
mean,
no, go, go.
you were talking about procrastination earlier. I think
Yeah.
sometimes that gets overstated. I don't actually think procrastination is usually the problem. It's usually ambiguity. I think
Mhm.
procrastination is the problem when you have a deadline. And in fact, usually procrastination solves itself because then people stay up all night to study for the test, right? And usually procrastination is a problem because people say, I could have done better if I didn't procrastinate, right?
Mm.
But it's actually not. But weirdly, that's not your problem as an adult. Procrastination is a term we carry over, I think, from schooling,
School.
and maybe work. And there's a sense of what's very interesting. There's a difference between procrastination as a problem, where you have the sense of if I would have started earlier, I would have done better,
Yeah.
versus something where you don't do it all. There's different
Mm.
things going on here because what happens as an adult when stuff is invisible, that's more due to an ambiguity, not a
Mm.
procrastination.
I think
That
that's true. Yeah.
yeah, I think work because procrastination is a problem with a deadline. Like it's more of a problem with a
Mm.
deadline because procrastination becomes visible to you because of the deadline.
Hmm.
So the issue is, I guess I'm trying to say the phenomenology of procrastination is different from ambiguity, because in procrastination, you're procrastinating.
Hmm.
There's a weird thing where, like, you're talking about cleaning the house, where stuff is invisible. There's almost a sense where you don't even know you're not doing it. I mean, you definitely see this in people, not to make an extreme example, like with hoarding, where things become invisible to
Hmm.
people and they don't see it. It's like it's
Hmm.
literally kind of invisible to them.
Well, maybe though, Daniel, it's not so much that it's invisible. It's that it's allowed. Like it's in the sense that
But I guess that's invisibility for me.
hmm,
Like if it's allowed, then you don't think about it. And
yeah.
you're not and it's
But
not
that assumes
standing
that
out to you.
yeah, but that assumes that, and I mean it's not a wrong assumption necessarily, but like this is why I think it's interesting to link this with ambiguity, because then we also link to certain values,
Yes.
right? Because for
Mhm.
somebody,
Mhm.
they'd say, maybe they could contest, well, this, of course, this is not invisible. This is what I choose to keep in my home,
They might.
you
Yeah.
know.
Sure.
Or they could say, and it's true. It probably is like, oh, I didn't think about that,
Yeah.
whereas I didn't think about that.
Mhm.
Now, I think the experience of like, at least how I tend to experience, it's a kind of a combination, I think, where you're like, you see the same thing and you're like, I'm not sure why I still haven't wiped down that,
Yeah.
um, whatever it is, baseboard or whatever. There's like these certain things where like, you definitely see it. It's not
Mm.
invisible.
Mhm.
It seems like it's become invisible to me
Mhm.
because it's not being attended to, but
Mhm.
it's not that it's invisible. It's just that oh, I see that thing again, but I need to go do this other thing right now. I don't know. And I
Well,
guess but see, this is where it might tie into ambiguity, because if there's the amorphous things to get done and lack of like order, structure, design, then it does become, um, if you see, then you're like, okay, I see that, but I know I attend to those types of things on this day, then yeah, it essentially it's kind of a acknowledging it's there and allowing it, but it's not invisible to the point that you forgot and you don't ever get to it. You do get to it at a certain time.
Well, there's something where I guess I want to say is stuff becomes visible to you, like cleaning the baseboard when you're in the middle of doing something. And therefore you can't do it, or you're like, I need to remember to do that.
Yeah,
There's this
yeah,
weird thing where there's also this problem of like as an adult, you're always in the middle of something, right? So
mhm,
you're always doing something, or you
yeah,
always have something to do,
yeah,
and you catch glimpses and glimmers of
yeah,
things that you're like, I need to do that, and then it's invisible again because it's like, well, I have to. You're trying to also figure out when to get to it. Can I do it now?
yeah.
Is it urgent? You're making constant decisions. Is that a priority or not? And
Yes,
what ends up
yes.
happening is when you do have an opening to do it, then it's not visible to you. Like, because it's almost like you only see it when you're in the middle of
Mm,
things.
mm,
But when you actually could do it, then you don't remember it. There's something like that that
mm,
occurs.
mm.
But then when the person's coming over or the externality, then all of the things pop back into memory and you can see it suddenly and you're able to go and do it, right? So
Yeah,
there's a few I guess I'm trying to think of kind of the phenomenology is what I want to say, the experience of it. So you're going through your day and there's lots of things to do and you're always already in the middle of something. You catch glimpses of things you need to do, but you have to live it. Well, after I have to, take care of the kids first, feed them, then that, and so on and so forth. And there's also a way. Is it really hurting anything? That's also the
right. And
issue.
that's what I was gonna say. Like, how much of this is a problem? Are you just making a problem out of it? It's like
Well, you have to decide in the moment of
Mhm,
glimpsing it. And right now, you're like, I don't know, but I know I need to feed the kids.
right.
So then you're gonna do that,
Yeah,
right? So you're in that
yeah,
work, taxes, whatever. You're in that, and then somebody's coming over, and then you remember it all, right?
hmm,
So we're kind of talking. There's a way in which we're pointing to: would it be possible
yeah.
to better work these
Well,
mechanisms?
right. And I wanted to kind of loop back a little bit to procrastination really quick because I think you're right that we don't. I guess I'm saying that in some ways, the thing about procrastination that's tricky is that it actually kind of works in the sense of like
Yeah,
it's in a sense it's it got the fact that you had an eminent limit of
yeah.
when it
That's
needs to
what I'm
be
saying.
done
It solves
it
itself.
solves itself because then
Yes.
yeah, well, you had to get it done and you got it done,
Yeah.
great, you got it done,
Yeah,
right?
and I guess
And
the key element is with cleaning the baseboard. Are you really procrastinating? Because that means it matters. You just make. Does it really matter? Is it really hurting anything? With procrastination, you know you need to do it. But the problem is a
yeah,
lot of things you
well, and
don't have to do them.
but this is where it comes to, I don't know, it does make me think again about like ambiguity being solved with value assessment.
But
And
then you
then
have to be able to make a value assessment.
yeah, yeah, and understand what are your values, like
Hmm.
what, and and I
When
think
in school, the teacher tells you your value. So that's
absolutely.
why procrastination usually follows from absorbed values.
And then of course you like everything you accomplished with what you did at, oh, I finished this. It never came back. Like,
It never came in. You did it and you're
you
done.
did it, you're
Very
done.
important.
It never came
Baseboard,
back.
it's
Baseboard
dirty again.
is it's, I
Yeah.
mean, we talk about
Hmm.
this all the time. We were
Hmm.
talking about this the other night, management.
Yeah.
How in adulthood it's it's really just constantly redoing and redoing and
Yes.
redoing.
Yes.
It's never going to just be completely done, and that's actually means that's great. You're alive,
But that
but
begs the
that
question of does it matter? Like, why clean it? That's like, does it really matter? Because I'm just going to have to do it again. That's part of that, I think.
yeah, and but that's where you have to decide like what is my kind of threshold, or what is my, how do I define, this is where it goes to
Yeah.
want. What do I want in terms of how to keep a clean home, or whatever it is, keep an organized space. You have to decide those things.
Yeah. But then you can ask, who am I to decide those things? On what basis? Is it arbitrary? I'll clean the baseboards later. That's what happened. You go into your existential crisis and go make some eggs. So that's just what happens. But that is a tension that is at the heart of this problem of motivation.
Yeah,
That's what I think is lurking, and when people say, "Just do it," it ignores that entire phenomenological existential
yeah,
reality.
and I'm still wondering if you can create that external pressure without the external
But
pressure.
that is the question.
I
That
mean,
is the
can you
million
do
dollar
that? Like,
question.
can you get yourself, and I don't
Well,
know if
we
it's
we
just,
first have to identify what is going on in the phenomenology
yeah.
before we can answer that. So it really matters. Is it a problem of procrastination? Well, then just add a limit. Oh, or is it a problem of ambiguity?
Mm.
Oh, well, then that's a different thing.
And I wonder too if in adulthood, because it's now suddenly the multitasking where,
Yes. Oh, yes.
the ambiguity also comes from like you legitimately
It,
have several things at the same
all of
time
which
that
are
have
important to do. It's not like
exactly.
this is important and the rest are
And this is why
distractions. Where in school, that's usually what it is. You're supposed to do the test, and everything else you could do is fun, but you're really not important, like going to the party or seeing friends or
Mhm.
whatever. So it's the one thing you should be doing and all the things you want to be doing. As an adult, no, you have to be doing all five of the things. So that's an entirely different structure.
Well, that's and actually it's funny you say this, and this is where I was kind of I was thinking about the system, right? The system that says, here's school and here's what it does. And I'm just like,
It destroys you
well,
because it destroys your motivation.
well, it's
You
funny.
don't know how to motivate yourself. It destroys you. It's a disaster.
I was just
Anyway.
about to say, like, maybe it's the savior, Daniel.
Well, yeah,
Like in the
it's
sense of,
yeah, the deadly savior. Yes, yes.
but
If you stay in it forever, and that's what the system wants, get your 9 to 5 and retire. That literally, yes, Michelle. If the social contract works in the system, that is the promise. And then it failed, and now everyone's like,
but
"What
maybe you
now?"
could say, like, well, it doesn't fail all the time, though.
AI is failing it real good and hard, and people losing jobs. AI, like,
That's true.
yeah, that's all fine if the social order is the '90s. But if institutions fail and whatever, then you go crap. And the thing that worked hid from you your disablement
Yeah.
to work
And this is
outside of
the
it.
thing. This is kind of where, and I hate to say this, I don't mean it so, but I don't mean to sound so pathological or making it pathological because it's really just a system. It's
Mm.
just a system.
It's
Any
a
system is
system.
just a
Yeah.
system. It's just
Hmm.
trying to
Yeah.
solve problems for
It's
you.
not pathological if everyone's in it.
Well, it's like the very thing that solves the problem creates the problem,
Yeah. So
and then
the
it
other
solves the
all. Yeah.
problem. It
Yeah.
kind of it's like it solves the problem, but in solving the problem, it creates a new problem, which then it solves.
Yeah.
So and I think that's a very interesting thing because then again, it kind of goes back to your values because somebody might be like, great, yeah, sign me up. I'd rather take that
Mm.
trade off, and it's always just trade offs. It's always
Just
just
trade
trade
offs.
offs.
Yeah. It's an
But
investment strategy.
that's so existential to, I mean, even just to think about, I mean, it's like I know these
And
things, and yet
reasonable to,
still, as
yeah.
you can have moments where like, oh, okay, you're making, decisions that are trade-offs, and you have to just basically take a leap of faith to decide
Well,
that,
you get social crisis when you have people that say, "Sign me up." The society says, "Okay, we'll take care of you," and then it doesn't. It
yeah.
doesn't hold its end of the bargain, and
Yeah.
that's what we're
Well,
saying.
and that's the other thing, another thing too is that while it can work great for like a lot of people or some people,
Yeah.
um there's a lot of times it doesn't work well at all, or people are dealing with mental health issues
So we
within
other
those
those people,
systems.
like Foucault talks about. We just other those people. They don't count, and
Yeah.
that works for a time until the whole thing collapses. So anyway, but please.
Yeah, but it is interesting because there is something that feels so kind of almost maternal and nurturing about like, let's just, this is the system is the village. The system will take care of you, and it will take care of your nervous system, and it will take care of this and the other. Never mind the fact that the technicalities of how it does so sort of programs you in a certain way that then kind of drops you off when you become actually an adult, when you do have to now have multiple things you're
And then
doing
the
at the same
system
time.
says that's your fault.
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
other key is
Yeah.
that, well, if you would have just stuck with the system versus do your own things, or if you would have just not had kids and been in a place like whatever,
Mhm.
like then it makes it your fault. And that's the entire dynamic that people like Foucault were talking about.
Mhm.
That's at play, and it's very real.
Very real.
There's also a different. You could argue there's a difference between the system and the community. We've lost community for the system,
Yeah.
and so you don't have anything to make up the gaps of the
Yeah.
system. It's one thing if the system is imperfect, but there's community and small localities and social capital to catch people who fall out of the system or to make up for the gaps in the system.
Mhm.
But the problem is the system tends to erode the community that could make up the gap. So then you just fall through.
Yeah.
There's nothing to catch you, and thus the system is there's some significant problems with it.
Yeah. I think, sorry, it's interesting though because I'm trying to think about what, like, it's interesting because it's hard. It's sort of like to have critiques for anything that's more systematic can feel unfair because it's like, look, it's working great for these people, and if it can work great, it should be able to work great for anybody. And you're kind of denying people the opportunity to develop through the system that they could have had if they don't have an opportunity to that
I
exposure.
would personally never wish for the system to fail anyone who has chosen it.
Yeah.
That I would hope and pray that the system works perfectly well for anyone who has chosen that and is on that track, and may they thrive and be happy in all that they do. 100%. The question is, to what degree or to what probability is that a good investment strategy for your life, given the technological, economic, and social circumstances of our day? And that's the decision you have to make based on what you've gathered. Lorenzo would always talk about, and I do like it. I like it a lot. We talked about it, like thinking about epistemology and decisions as a portfolio,
Mm.
like investment, like kind of investment epistemology.
Hmm.
And there's really this idea that when you make choices, you're making investment. And in investing, you buy a stock, it could go under. Have you done your research? Do you know what? Oh, well, everyone told me that this company was going to go up. You did it, and you lost all your money. Oh, it was so invest like life is more like decisions are more like creating a portfolio.
Mm.
than it is right and wrong. Like, is investing in Nvidia a good decision or a bad decision? Well, what price is it? Is there a margin of safety in the Benjamin Graham sense? Is it at $210 a share or is it at $140 a share? You have to like it's not really the case that if I ask, should I invest in Nvidia? It's not really a good or bad decision. It's completely contingent. And one of the things that has gotten us a huge problem is people don't realize their life decisions are way more like picking stocks for a portfolio than it is right or wrong.
Mm.
And we really have to get out of this mindset of right and wrong. I absolutely hope that people who have heavily indexed their portfolio with quote unquote equities that are primarily based on the system, I hope they do very well. I hope their portfolio doubles and triples and does extremely, extremely well. But given what we know about how the world is,
Mhm.
given the research we have done, there is reason to think that a portfolio that is heavily indexed in system based stocks
Mhm.
is probably not going to do well. You're
Mhm.
going to want to diversify it with some system stocks, some outside the system stocks, some entrepreneurial
Mhm. Mhm.
endeavors, some enablement abilities. You want a diversified portfolio because a diversified portfolio is likely to be more anti fragile.
Mhm.
And critically, as someone like a Ray Dalio points out, a lot of people think their portfolios are diversified when really they're not. They say something like, "Oh, I have some tech stock, I have some Nasdaq, I have some, I have some Dow, I have some S&P, I have a really diversified portfolio." No, you don't. All of those are equities. Do you have any
Mhm.
gold? Do you have any commodities? Do you have any international stock investment or whatever? Right. So that's another problem is people are not diversified as they think. And I know that's all one giant analogy, but the
No,
point
I
I'm
like that.
making
That's
is
helpful.
that that is how life is. And you need to think about there is a danger in having your portfolio of life entirely invested outside the system where you're like, I don't want anything to do with the system. That
Mhm.
can get you into trouble,
Yeah,
right? But
absolutely.
if you're dependent on the system, like if you are dependent on the Nasdaq going up, if you're dependent on Nvidia doing well, that's probably not very good.
Well, I'm glad you came to the word dependency because I was thinking about what Thomas Strachan was talking about at the net
Yes, yes.
and how there is, though, something about us as humans that don't like to admit our dependency.
There's necessary dependency and there's unwise dependency. Dependency meaning you put all your eggs in one basket. That's silly. Like that's a dependency you should not have, which
Mhm.
is put all your eggs in one basket. Are you dependent on some level of dependency? Absolutely. But make sure your eggs are spread around.
Right, right. Yeah. So that's true. And that kind of clarifies that. But it's just that it's, I guess, only one would know within their own particularity if they're like in what way they're being dependent.
Yeah, and it's really, really hard. In the same way that it's remarkably hard. Like, I guess I just go to the stock example because that's just kind of one that I think is useful. Many people think they have researched the stocks. Many people do think their portfolio is diversified. It's really, really hard to to be super critical and be like, do I actually know what I'm talking about? Do I
Mhm.
actually
Yeah.
know what I'm doing? Am I really diversified? That's really, really hard. But that, but I guess to go back to the main line of inquiry, that level of kind of I want to say ruthlessness or a certain sort of demand on yourself
Mhm.
creates motivation. Like that demand on yourself creates necessity. Like where you just simply won't accept of yourself to fudge it. Like you won't
Mm.
accept that also is
Mhm.
quite useful because you become your own necessity. Like
Exactly.
you
And
become
that
your own necessity by your own sort of I want to say kind of ruthlessness of no, you don't know what you're talking about. So, like, this kind of like you're not you actually haven't done the work. And that can create a certain necessity because it removes plausible self-denial.
mm.
Like it removes that from yourself that can create. There's a lot more to
what
say,
what
but
what
please.
would you say is specifically that removes the self-denial or that
Like being really, really honest with yourself of
mm.
have you done the work? Have you done the research? Do you actually know what you're talking about or not? Most of us live in an ambiguity where we give ourselves more credit than we should. Like we
Yeah.
exist in an ambiguity where like I know how to write. I like to read. Oh yeah, no, no, I've done research. I'm interested in stocks. No, you haven't. Like
Yeah.
you just it's a notion, it's a vagity, right? But if
Mhm.
you really kind of look at yourself and it's like, no, I haven't read Robert Olson Butler and had an existential crisis where I realized that I have no idea what I'm doing. Like, have you put
Mm.
yourself in places where you're forced to admit to yourself that that you're not meeting the standard? I guess I want to say that can help. That's a kind of a hard knock school, I suppose.
Yeah.
But there's something here that's very different. I guess what I want to say is that's very different than just telling someone just do it.
Mhm.
How do you just do it?
Mhm.
Well, you have to create a way where you remove plausible deniability from yourself about yourself.
Mhm. Mhm.
That because then you have to live with yourself and you have to live with yourself now with the knowledge that you haven't actually researched that stock. You actually don't know what you're talking about. You say you like to write, but you actually have not submitted yourself to the standards of Robert Olson Butler. You haven't
Yeah.
done that. Now you know you haven't, and now you have to make a choice.
Mm.
And as soon as you now have to make a choice, that tends to create motivation.
I'm trying to think of how that maps over again to like the cleaning a house or right keeping
Sure.
it tidy because I'm thinking about this element of research. I mean, I think there is this. I don't know. There's just a question mark is coming up for me in what you're saying because I don't think you're wrong. I think that what
Hmm.
you're saying is correct. But we do live in this kind of inundation of information,
Mm.
an information age, and so the idea of like research it till you feel like you have the right answer. Obviously, that's also
Sure,
that's
sure,
falling into
sure,
the right
sure,
wrong
sure, sure,
dynamic when
sure.
it's really just often going to be a leap of faith. However, uh, there is a way in which if you're getting rigorous with yourself, you start to get really honest with like how much have you cultivated in your own capacity to do certain to have like maybe
Yes,
that's a better because I'm just
yes,
thinking like
yes.
people will research all day
Well,
long
well,
about
I very good
homeschooling
point.
or like
Yeah, yeah,
schooling
yeah.
or
Very good point.
how to
Very
do
good
this
point.
and that and then they'll end up either feeling righteous or like kind of it's like their brain almost has to believe it's the right way so that they can live with themselves or they um but they're using research almost in like the wrong I don't say like the wrong way because it's more just about quantifying that decision versus it being like about
Well, they're
um
mostly researching to feel like they
to feel
researched.
better.
Yeah, to feel like they've done the research as opposed to getting to a place of real self confession
Yeah,
almost. Of
and
real,
maybe it's just a bit different because stocks do
yeah,
require
I'm thinking
research,
so. Yes,
which is
yes.
true, and it's true that yeah, like I guess I'm just trying to think really quick about how I might use that word in terms of this rigorous, hard knock school for yourself, right? That you put yourself through, is to do like I almost want to say is doing the research on yourself. Like, are you what
Yes,
exactly
yes.
is it that again? What do you want? Are you doing things that are in line with that at all? If you're not, what's keeping you from that? Is there something you're afraid of that's keeping you from making certain decisions to be able to live in such a way that is aligned with that? Like,
Well,
yeah. So,
yes.
because
So what I would say, and that I would, I guess I'm gesturing toward, is the idea that you make yourself visible to yourself. And because the problem of ambiguity is invisibility. Okay. So you become visible to yourself and you really see what you're doing. Like
yeah,
what you're doing when you're investing, I'll just stick for that example for one more moment. What you're doing when you're investing is you're hearing something that looks good. You have FOMO, fear of missing out, and it sounds plausible, and you're calling that research. But if you really
yes,
see it, no,
yes,
that's not what's going on. But you
yeah,
see, actually, this is where removing plausible deniability, which then forces a choice. Are you going to change or not? And then know you're not changing is something that philosophy does. Because the very example of saying the whole premise of the conversation of going, wow, why is it when I know somebody's coming over, suddenly I get energy out of nowhere? Most people never ask that. Like no one ever thinks about that. And what they tell themselves is like, oh, the house is fine. Everything's fine. Like it's
mm,
invisible. Like they exist in a kind of space of I mean, you talk about
mm,
feeling bad, but I think a lot of people get used to that bad feeling and think it's normal. Like they
mm,
think that
mm,
kind of feeling is just life. And then they think, I better treat it with entertainment or something or pills or something. I
mm.
think most
That's
people
interesting. Mm.
actually own that feeling as normal,
Is
right?
that like maybe admirable though? They'd say that's fine. This is life, and I'm gonna be happy regardless
If
of
they
it.
mean it. But then the problem is without philosophy, you don't know if you mean it.
Yeah,
It's just something you've absorbed.
yeah,
And then it's very fragile and you may say that, but then somebody makes a comment, you get mad, you blow up, you get depressed or something, right?
yeah,
Like you just have to mean what you say. But you can't mean what you say if you don't think about it.
yeah.
You just absorb it and it's fragile. But I guess what I'm trying to say is philosophy or really paying attention to what's happening. Now you see it.
Mm,
And now you can get at the truth
mm.
because now you have two choices. One, just say, yeah, that's weird. And just go, that's
That's
weird and
weird.
go about your business. Or two, you have to decide. You have to do
Yeah.
something about it, right? So you've removed plausible deniability. So that in of itself is like someone coming over. That in of
Mm,
itself is a pressure of necessity that makes possible to get that energy out of nowhere. and now you can apply it to
Mm,
the whole of
mm.
your life.
Ooh, I love that. So specifically how to get yourself out of being invisible, which I think is
Yes.
actually a nice framework because it almost makes you an observer to see
You
yourself
can't
and how
make the
you.
world around you visible until you're visible.
Yeah, yeah.
So everything becomes invisible. You can't just will to start seeing it because
Mhm.
there's these habits and the multiplicity of all the tasks. Like you're
Yeah.
just trying to survive, so you can't do it. But if you can make yourself visible, that can then spring out to making the world visible because of some
Mm.
change you've done in yourself.
Yeah.
But
No,
that's
that's good.
philosophize your life stuff.
That is philosophize your life stuff. And I do think it's also partly, some of the stuff I like to bring up with, having yourself be, if you want to come online, if you will, or come alive or be more
Yeah.
like not just kind of an automaton in your own world, right? You have to actually like get yourself nourished, get yourself outside in the sun, get yourself like resourced enough to make clear decisions.
And that's making you visible to yourself.
Yeah.
So all
Yeah.
of that stuff is really important
Hmm.
because you can, if you're not visible to yourself and what you are,
Hmm.
then you can't remove plausible deniability from yourself. So you can't remove ambiguity.
Hmm.
If you can't remove ambiguity, you can't create that mysterious energy.
So again, removing the plausible deniability is to make yourself
Visible
visible
to yourself.
to yourself.
Hmm. Hmm.
Okay. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
and
That
and
that
that's necessity
that
because
makes
once you see, you can't unsee. Like
mm,
once you see yourself, you can't unsee it. Now
yeah,
it's necessity.
yeah.
So we have necessity, and necessity is part of the secret of creating energy.
Absolutely. Because we talked about that,
Yeah,
right?
that's
And
right.
that's I mean, that's the thing. The part of you could be like, oh, great! Like that was so nice. I got the whole house clean so swiftly because somebody said they were going to stop by, right? But then you can go into the mode of like, why couldn't I have done that without the necessity of somebody stopping
Yes.
by? But then you can say, but actually, what that proves is I could have done things differently.
Yes. Yes.
So okay, that's
So why
interesting.
didn't I?
So why didn't I? But
Yes.
instead of staying in the paralyzed place of self degradation,
Yes.
you say, I could possibly do things differently,
Yes.
which is such a
Yes.
simple but huge
Yes. And that's
realization.
necessarily true.
Yeah, and that's necessarily true. It makes me think about Yolanda. I like listening to the things she shares about, and she's a mom. She's probably 47, maybe she just had her
Mm.
11th baby, and she was talking about how she used to not go to the gym because I couldn't possibly put my kids in like a fluorescent light place with plastic toys. She's very holistic, so it's like
Mm.
with plastic toys, like no, no. But that meant she never went. She would always use the kids as an excuse to not work out,
Right.
to not like go to the lift
Yes.
weights, do stuff. And now she's like that. The very thing that I was
Yes.
believing was causing me to not be the best version of myself, to not feel good
Hmm.
in myself, and yet
Hmm.
I was saying it like, oh well, I can't have, for their
Yes.
sake I
Yes.
shouldn't do
Yes.
that.
So that's making herself visible to
Yeah,
herself.
exactly. And so therefore, when you
Now
can't
there's
unsee it, you're
necessity.
like, oh, I see
So
what
now
I'm
I have to
doing,
make
I
a
make.
choice.
Yeah, which I guess a lot of like this plausible deniability is the excuses lend, right? This is like
Yes.
where
Yes.
excuses live,
Yes.
right?
But I guess I sometimes push against the language of excuse because
It's so
excuse is
easy to.
so heavy-handed. Like you should
Yeah.
know better. It
Mhm.
ignores the existential, phenomenological, and tragic levels of
Trappedness, that
yeah,
the
yeah,
kind of,
yes,
to use our word,
yes,
enclosure. It's
enclosure.
kind of an
Yes.
enclosure.
It's
Yeah,
not really excuses. It's usually really good reasons. You're
absolutely.
feeding the kids.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not like it's excuses and it's not. Excuse is a language of the school system because you
Mm.
have a clear objective and you're making up excuses for doing it. It's not true to the adult life. Adult
Yeah.
life is managing things you do need to do. That
And
if you feed the kids instead of clean
the
the
baseboards.
baseboard, is that an excuse? No,
That's a
that's a
legitimate
real legitimate reason.
reason, yeah.
So it's again, it's when people say just do it, don't make excuses. There's truth to it, but it's really simplistic, and
And it never
tends to
motiv
be toward the demographic of people on social media who are joining a tech startup, who are trying to inspire themselves, who don't have kids. So they're single and stuff, and it's true, and it has a certain stoicism that's
yeah.
valid, but it doesn't design. It's not
Yeah,
design. It's willpower. It's willpower.
and it's too easy to.
It's individual. It's not relational. It's not in a context of a community you're
Exactly.
negotiating with. It doesn't tell us enough.
It's too simple. It's just too simple of a, it's like, oh, as if,
And all it
like,
will do is make you feel bad.
exactly.
You're
That's what
right.
I'm
I
saying. Like
can't
it'll
make
never.
myself do it. I'm guilty. So then you really won't do it.
I just make like, oh, I must just be somebody who makes excuses all the time. I'm just
Yes.
a failure. Da, da, da.
Yeah. And so you're really not cleaning that. You may not feed the kids this time. Like you may be worse off now. You just So yeah, that's what happens all the time.
All kids are being fed.
Yeah. Yes, they are. But no,
Yeah,
it's
it's
this seeing yourself to remove plausible deniability. Just seeing yourself. That then, and you can't unsee it.
yeah.
And once that occurs, then you can make choices.
But that feels so, I think that can feel so scary because
Yes.
honestly, really the system, challenge on me if on this, if you will, because you start to see yourself as the system. Like you get,
Yes.
I remember feeling quite a
Oh,
sense
yeah.
of identity in
Yes.
my grades and
Mhm.
all this and
Mhm.
that.
Mhm.
And again, if you choose that, like you said, hope
Yeah.
that hopefully is the
Yes.
best choice, and you thrive in that. Um, but the risk of that, the risk is that you really never had to make
Yes.
yourself visible, and anytime you did, it was probably not, how do I say this? I guess I'm just thinking about the fact that, and this isn't about like visibility and like trying to get attention sort of sense. We're talking about being able to actually look at yourself in the mirror, right? Like
Yes.
actually be able to see yourself, be honest with yourself about yourself, your flaws, your gifts, and be able to design something that's better for you to function better, and to
Yes.
be able to do the things that you say, or do you really
Mhm.
want the things that you want to create? Well, then,
Mhm.
so what I mean to say though is that oftentimes something that's more systematic may never force you to ask that question,
Correct.
because again, it's often just you get, and it's nice, right? You get fed what you want, you get told what you should want, and then you just do
Yeah.
what you want in that system, and then you feel very successful, and that
Yes.
that sort of, like you said, it works until it doesn't.
And if someone has a life portfolio that is 100% invest in the equities of the system and they get identity as such, and that portfolio never goes bust, Godspeed.
Yeah.
One must decide in their own life circumstances if that sort of diversification of their life portfolio is wise. And generally, the life portfolio must give strong returns in the areas of time, health, and money. Health would include quality, time, relationship, marriage, and so on
Hmm.
and so forth. And if you look at your life circumstances and say in those three areas, I can get good returns by this diversification of my portfolio. Great.
Yeah.
As of the year 2026, I would be surprised if 100% investment in the system would yield the return one would be pleased with
Hmm. Hmm.
in all
And
areas of life, marriage,
right,
etc.
right. Yeah, I mean, it's a funny thing. I guess I'm just thinking again about that idea of being able to, um because basically the thing is, a lot of times adult life, if you're going to be making some creating something, anything, that is going to require you to like not live just in your own
Yes.
kind of autonomous
Yes.
self world, um it will require you to look at yourself, but
Yes.
if you haven't developed the habit, or the habit, or like the skill to do so, because again, I mean, I don't know if you agree or not, but I don't think the system necessarily cultivates that skill because it doesn't have to.
No, it doesn't want to because then it would individuate people, and that would be a threat
That'd be
to the
hard to
functioning
do.
of the system. And how can it?
Yeah, I
How
can't.
can it
Yeah,
individuate?
exactly.
Right? Um, yeah, seeing yourself is really important. I mean, to give a concrete example, just with the
Yeah,
writing,
let's do
like
that.
when you're writing stories, you look at the story and you say, "Oh, before Robert Olson Butler," and you're looking at Turn the World, and you're seeing these sentences that are very general, like Don ran through the field. Okay, take that sentence. You say the information is all there, and I don't want to waste time of the reader with a lot of detail. I want to get to the story. The story is what counts. And you come up with all those reasons. But after Butler, or once you kind of really examine the truth, it's like it's just not landing with people. And you could do this thing where you say, well, that's just because they don't understand it or whatever. But you're not looking at yourself.
Mm.
But the day comes where you look at yourself and you go, well, actually, it's because you don't like describing stuff. You
Mm.
give it a reason, but you don't like description. And in fact, if you're going to be in this business doing this craft, you need to be able to describe. And that's hard for you. Well, it doesn't matter. And
Hmm.
you stop coming up with reasons that
Hmm.
are artistic, like artistic license, and using that to justify not doing what Butler says. Also, it's
Yeah.
hard to do what Butler says.
Yeah.
But the truth is, you don't want to do what he's saying. So now you've seen that about yourself. So you have a choice now. You either go back and rewrite the stories and make them work, or you continue to tell yourself that, some people will get it and that's my audience. You use the audience card to
Yeah.
not change. Um, and face that choice
Hmm.
and stop denying it.
Yeah, that's good. That's a great concrete example. And I guess I'm thinking though, this is what makes it so interesting and nuanced, and maybe
Yes.
even difficult to navigate it, because um okay, so like, really quick, back to Yolanda. She has
Yeah.
11 children. She homeschools her kids, right? So she does things that are like
Different.
different,
Yeah.
yeah, different, but also she has this, she has had this revelation of like, I've been making, I basically created, I was enclosed and insular in my reasoning for why I couldn't go to the gym, right? Or I
Mm.
couldn't work out. Um, and So she chose to recognize that about herself and say, I that was almost absurd to think that like 1 hour you just have the kids in a fluorescent light with wall to wall carpeting for an hour would like mess them up for life. But really, it's in strict empowering her as a mother to
Yeah.
be able to be a better present mother with them when she's with them and taking care of them and all of that, teaching them and stuff. So what I mean to say is that try to boil this down. Maybe facing fears could be a good rubric for this
Hmm.
because what I'm trying to get to with bringing Yolanda up again is that people will end up making decisions like you can. There's not just one. I think our brains want there to be this one thing of like, well, this is what it would mean for you
Right.
to be doing the hard thing. You would just be doing this, 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 and this. And really, that's not actually, again, this is not seeing yourself. This is
Hmm.
just seeing some sort of system that's decided these are the things you do that are hard, that then means you're successful and you did good and you actually developed as a human being because you did things you didn't want to do. Um, and I don't know, maybe there's a part of it though that like you could though even come from a place of questioning things that are systematic and realize, oh, actually, I'm not allowing myself to be in the uh, thrust upon me systematic definition. So maybe that would be actually the decision that would be me facing what's hard. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Like it it's people
But
might be like looking for what is and this is where comes up. We said these words at the beginning of the talk. What do we say? Particular, and there was one other word we said, but
particular and necessity,
yeah,
like
necessity, right?
limit.
And maybe this is where it gets to well, careful because if you just choose what everybody else says is the hard thing to do that you should do and then you'll be successful, this is the very thing that's not always setting people up for actual success in their adult lives and in their lives.
Absolutely.
um Even though it's a lot of fun, there could be a lot of fun in there
Yes.
and hard and this and that, and it's kind of like a lovely sort of a buffet of all the things that you get to experience, but some of it's really crappy too. But there's also a lot of good, there can be a lot of good in it.
I-
What I'm saying is that if that's really what everyone, or maybe you yourself have only kind of experienced as the way, then to be able to decide and decipher, oh my gosh, I have to actually face myself and face what is hard for me, and then make a decision from that place of assessment. I'll forget it. I'll just say, a lot of people do just forget it and go with the system, or they say forget it and they don't face their fears and they
Yeah,
don't face themselves and they don't make decisions differently about a design. So, anyways, I'm going to throw it back to you. I hope that made sense.
it did. Um, so this is the part where you can start to give out things people can do. Like
Go
whether
for
they
it.
would work for people or not is a different question. Whether they're perfect or not is a different question. Because yes, you can always spin it. That's just internally consistent. You can always say, well, actually, the fear thing would mean this, and you can just spin it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
You can always
And then
spin
just
it,
like,
and
yeah,
then you're paralyzed. So you can only deal with philosophical inquiries through concrete experience,
yeah,
because otherwise it's an abstract, right?
yeah, yeah.
So go through your day. So a few things. I know we're almost out of time, but go through your day and pay a whole lot of attention to what drains your energy.
Yeah.
Not in this makes you tired because you worked hard today. I'm talking that psychological draining.
Yes,
So you look at
yes.
the base. Let's use the baseboards. You look at the baseboards and you just feel that. Okay, you feel that feeling. Okay, so go through your day. There's that feeling. Then maybe you're not eating meals when you want to eat them, and that makes you feel hmm. And then maybe there's, I don't know, there's a phone call you haven't done. You feel, okay. So there's three things, all right. And these three things will change
Hmm.
as you go through life, what they are, right? And I would say these are three things that are different from the necessities that constitute daily life. Because we were making this point earlier that feeding the kids, there's cleaning the baseboard, which you don't have to do, right? And feeding the kids. So I don't think your problem in life is going to be feeding the kids because the very necessity of that,
Yes,
like the
the
person coming
external,
over, well, you're
it's
going
an
to just
external
do it.
pressure. Yep.
So the question is, what are the three things? What are the things that are ambiguous? Okay, they're ambiguous if you should do them or not. That make you go and you feel them drain your energy.
Yeah.
Pay attention and find three of them today. Maybe you experienced seven. Let's just do three, okay? Then what you're going to do is you're going to take a piece of paper and you're going to write those three things down and be ruthless about doing them.
Yeah.
Like ruthless.
Yeah.
Like they're on, and then
yeah.
and do three. Don't go. Well, let me go on in seven. No, don't do all seven. Do three. Do three or two. Do one. I don't care. Do one where it seems ridiculous that you didn't do it. Like, do the Kaizen, Japanese thing. It's one of the
Yeah.
most important things ever. Like, you want to start doing push-ups? Do one today. You say, well, I could do 10. No, no, just do one. Humiliate yourself. Like, feel like you could do more. But the Kaizen thing is like, and then do two tomorrow.
Yeah.
And then three, like the real small steps. I think the Kaizen is really important. But anyway, so you got your piece of paper and you got that one thing, and you have a certain roof list to it. And
Mhm.
at the end of your day, all the things you put on that piece of paper are marked out.
Mhm.
That's your routine, and it becomes a
Mhm.
habit you don't even think about,
Mhm.
right? So you mark them off.
Mhm.
Um, that by writing something down creates necessity. Writing something down and making it visible to everyone in the family creates necessity because then everyone can see if you did it or not,
Yeah, it's kind of
right?
like about like having goals that you explicitly state.
Yes, but they're goals about the ambiguous things
Yeah, yeah.
that keep them visible to you and focused. And a lot of these things, like you say, if you do, it takes 30 seconds. When they're ambiguous, also you need to get in the habit of those things that feel like they'll take forever to do, that you realize actually they take 5 minutes to do. And when you get used to that, it becomes plausible to you that those things that you experience as taking forever, like cleaning the house, actually can be done in 20 minutes
Yeah.
if you just do it. Then it becomes easier to do these things as
Yeah.
well because you get this experience of
Yeah.
the multiplicity. Now, this is the other key I do want to say to this is I do think it can help to have three. I like to do even numbers, like four. Let me explain
Mm.
why. It's because you look at the baseboard and the other one is, say, doing the calls. You'll look at the baseboard and say, well, let me do the calls. You'll avoid the one, or if you're like not able to do one, you can. This is where you use procrastination against procrastination. You if you do have a tendency to procrastinate, which can occur because we've now made a list. You know what we said in school? We said you can only procrastinate if you have a goal. But what did we also say? Procrastination solves itself.
Yeah.
So how do you create procrastination for yourself that's productive?
Mhm.
You're actually going to procrastinate the things on the list with other things on the list. And you'll find yourself having amazing energy to do those phone calls you need to do
Mhm.
because they're getting you away from doing the baseboard.
Mhm.
And then you've done that and you're like, okay, but it's on the list and I'm ruthless about doing it. Now you'll do the baseboard because you've actually built up the energy to do the baseboard by doing those emails you were supposed to do. That was procrastination from doing the baseboards because now you feel accomplished. So now you have the energy to, because there's going to be, I guess what I'm saying, there's going to be something on that list that feels most energy demanding.
Mhm.
You're going to procrastinate that thing with the other things on the list that will build up the energy to do that last thing by doing those other three. Because you're
Mhm.
going to get to 6 o'clock in the evening, and to heck if I'm not finishing off that list, I'm so close. And now you'll have the energy to do the last one.
Mhm.
This is literally a system I do. This system absolutely, in my experience, works because what you're doing is tricking yourself constantly all day long. You're basically tricking yourself all day long. Like when you give yourself the luxury to procrastinate, you procrastinate with something that needs to be done. You procrastinate getting, oh, you need to finish your taxes? Well, you procrastinate by working on the garden, which needs to be done. And then after you're done with the garden, you have the energy to go do more taxes,
Yeah.
right? So procrastination is not procrastination,
Mhm.
and it builds the energy to do the other things, and you create this system of a feedback loop where you're working through all the
Mhm.
different things and you have a certain ruthlessness of
Mhm.
it. When I don't, in my experience, when I don't get the things done that are ambiguous that then makes me feel bad, it's because I didn't write them down. I didn't do this list
Mhm.
process. I didn't do this top of that
Mhm.
document I've been opening every day for 20 years that basically has at the top, and then I decide at the morning these are the four things.
Yeah. No, that's good. I mean, that's fantastic. It makes me wonder if somebody's like, well, that sounds awfully systematic, Daniel. Like,
Yeah.
can't
Mhm.
this, it
It's
can,
design though. I don't think it's a system, it's a design.
yeah.
You're because you're not making a system of doing that. You're
Right.
creating a space where you're negotiating all day long with your own energy.
Mhm.
And you're negotiating with yourself in a manner to surprise yourself with energy. Because
Mhm.
you're talking about that surprise of energy that comes out of
Yeah.
nowhere when the people are coming. So you are capable of surprising yourself with energy. So how do you design your day to surprise yourself with the energy to do the things?
Yeah.
So you're trying to, in a sense, I don't want to say hack because that's a Silicon Valley word, but you're trying to hack your own energy tendencies.
Yeah. No, that is good and that is helpful. I guess I'm just thinking about the fact that actually, so okay, adults will not be in school anymore, so they will basically have to figure out these hacks or
Yes.
systems or design, well, designs. Um, but I guess I'm just thinking like, and I'm wondering if there is something about, and maybe it's just the brain that does this, where it kind of thinks about system versus not system, right? when it's really more like
Think
this.
about I guess I want I'm not to interrupt you. You need to think about water flowing down a hill. You need to think about designing the way water
Yeah,
flows. And you're what you're doing is you're creating opportunities of flow
yeah.
in movement, right? Like if you like a lot of times people are trying to do more in willpower. Like I'll just will to do more, right?
Mhm,
That's entropic. Entropy will always win.
mhm,
When you create water running down a hill or water moving, you don't have to the water does not create any more energy to go
yeah,
down a hill.
yeah,
The environment gives the water the energy to go,
mhm,
right? So what you have to do is basically in a sense use your own worst tendencies against one another. Use your own tendency. Assume you're going to try to put off. Assume you're going to try to make
mhm,
reasons not to do it. Well, assume that, and then just create the space, the design of your day to when you do that, you nevertheless are having to do something you need to do.
mhm,
So you know you don't want to do taxes. Okay. So don't sit down and say, I gotta do it, I gotta do it, I gotta do it. What you that has a deadline, so that's gonna solve itself, of course. But this logic applies to anything. You say, you gotta do it. Okay. Well, the other thing, don't sit down and make yourself do it. Have the other thing on your list, like fix the fence in the garden there. So then you're gonna go fix the fence to get out of that. Then as you build the energy, you then come back to do that. Because then you get tired doing the fence and you're doing that. It's like, oh, there's another. Well, now you want to go do tax. Now you want to sit at your desk, right? Because you don't want to be doing all of that work to lift all those branches or whatever, right?
yeah,
So I guess I want to say a lot of quote unquote hacking is in the realm of willpower. It needs to be in the realm of design and thinking in terms of water going down a hill and
mm,
flowing around and creating different ways that the water can flow.
mhm,
And I think that that changes things.
yeah.
I mean, there
I
is also something, I guess, there is also, though, in addition to this, something to be said if every day at your clock goes off at 5:55 every day. Okay. So your body, like, not your brain, your body gets into habits of waking up at that time. You never, like, so there's a bunch, wake up at the same time. Waking up every day at the same time is more important than the amount you sleep, in my opinion, because your body gets into a habit. And it gets into a habit. And if every day at 6:30 you're writing, for example, then your body gets in the habit of doing that. So it's not a willpower thing, it's on the mind, it's in your entire body, right?
mhm,
So in addition to everything I'm saying, if there is also a scaffolding of a habit schedule, a
right.
habit structure, then that also combines with what I'm describing to really create
Mhm,
a very powerful motivation network as well, right? So then you're creating the constraint in the time. Like there's no questions asked. You get up at this time. So there's a constraint. You're going to do that. Because I guess I want to say, like, on that idea of the neighbor coming over and you have energy, one of the reasons people are not motivated is because they don't make choices. Like they don't choose that I'm going to get up at this time. Focus limits, limit creates energy.
yeah,
When you have options, you're not motivated.
mhm,
That's the irony. People
yeah,
keep their options open because they don't want to be limited. If you leave options open so you're not limited, your motivation will be limited. Closing options, limiting your options, unleashes your motivation. So you're either going to be limited in your options, or you're going to be limited in your motivation.
mhm,
Because once you realize an option, now you got to make it work. Then now you got to make it happen, right? You got to figure it out. So committing to something, choosing an option, choosing what you're going to do, but that gets to your value question.
yeah,
That also goes a long way. But the reason I'm also talking about the list thing is because let's say you come down to three values. Three things. You value a good environment for your kids. You value the art,
mhm,
and you value the marriage or something. Well, those are three things that even that is going to create the problem of negotiating the what time you do something like the
yeah,
billboard, the baseboard, and feeding the kids, right?
mhm,
Well, if you have those three things, which will have 10 little decisions that constitute those macro categories every
mhm,
single day, well, then you need a strategy of necessity
yeah,
that is built with and atop of your schedule commitment,
mhm,
that then your body's ready to exercise at that time. It just
right,
is because you do it every day. It's ready to get up at that time. It's ready to write, not because you
mhm,
decided, because it becomes subconscious. So I think that's another part of the
mhm,
design of motivation.
yeah. No, I think that's good. I guess and I don't know if it comes from the fact that, uh, I mean, I think it's the process of like, writing it down, which I think is huge and helpful. I guess I'm just thinking that maybe, I don't know if this is coming from like, like, I guess I'm just thinking about to-do list.
I understand.
Like, how, and maybe this is, it's already kind of been addressed when you talk about habits of the body because sometimes trying to create the habits, if they feel too much like a to-do list, they just feel like something you're trying to add versus
That's
something.
why it's based on what you've noticed on your energy expenditure,
Yeah, yeah.
not just something in the
You just
abstract.
randomly, yeah.
Yeah, if it's in the abstract, you won't do it, but if it's, like, literally because the feeling of it draining your energy is the necessity that gives meaning to what's on the list. And remember, it's 3 or 2 it's a limited number of things on the list. You do have so there is a base will all aspects of the human being have to be involved at all moments for those moments to be full. Now, that really has to be expanded on because that's a lot. But there's going to be some level of willpower.
Mhm,
It's going to be in there, of course. What is the most like you're trying to though because willpower is fundamentally entropic.
mhm,
It must tend toward entropy. So
mhm,
therefore it's the energy that's least efficient
mhm,
ultimately, even though it can be very powerful. Willpower is something that's super strong, but then it entropies quick,
mhm.
right? So it's not going to be the main energy source for your day
Yeah,
because it's going to run out too
yeah.
quick. That's where the design element. So you always want to be thinking on bare minimum willpower use. So the bare minimum willpower is writing something on a note. Like you have to generate enough willpower to say, I'm going to write this down even if I don't want to. Yes, you will have to do that. But if you just do that, you get once you can then put it on the fridge or put it in somewhere where it's now environmental, and
Mhm,
now it actually kind of moves out of willpower
mhm.
because it's now in the environment, and you've also done all the other things to habituate it, and it's based on your own experience of energy loss, right?
Mhm.
That you have felt. So that creates a conviction that this is important. Now, because you're willing yourself to believe it's important, you've already had the experience that it's important.
Mhm, mhm,
And you felt the cost of not doing it,
mhm,
right? And so
mhm.
that is what's compelling you, which is more of a reality that's based on the world, not just a raw willpower.
I guess it just makes me wonder though if somebody's like, "Oh, like I get more energy when I outsource to the system because literally I don't have to do,
Yes, people do.
you know,
And
I can."
Godspeed to them if it works. The issue is that a good investment for 2026? Because here's the problem. If that is you and it's working great, if you lose your job to AI suddenly, or you suddenly are not making the money you want, or your boss says you got to move to this place you don't want to move to, you're out of options.
And also, is it really cultivating your ability to have conversation? Is it
Yeah,
really,
you have to accept. Maybe it is. Maybe
yeah,
you are an incredible conversationalist. Maybe
yeah,
you are incredibly insightful because of your job. Just be honest with yourself.
yeah.
So everyone in the system. So let me put it this way: everyone in the system who has heavily indexed their portfolio in terms of the system, nevertheless needs philosophy to be able to ask themselves if the system is doing that for them or not in the positive
Mm.
sense. Like if you're in the system, you're like, no, the system's got me covered. Maybe it does, but without philosophy, you don't know. So
Well, you're
because
just
you
gonna say it is because that's of course what this is.
yeah,
Of
of
course,
course.
it would want it
Yeah.
to be.
So if you're in
That's
the
why it's
system,
there.
yeah.
That's why it's still
So
there.
so basically philosophy is checking the health of your life portfolio.
Hmm,
Like without philosophy, you can't check the health of your life portfolio,
hmm,
which that's pretty dangerous. Which again, hey man, the Dow's going up and there's no problem and it's great, wonderful. You just kind of
hmm,
set it and forget it. But if the black swan happens, 2008 financial or AI or something, or oh, I thought Nvidia would go up forever, bam, you're in a bond. So that's what I would say. It is
hmm.
not saying the system is bad. It's an investment strategy.
Yeah.
And I would just argue without philosophy, you can't check the health of your investment strategy. You can't check your portfolio.
Well, and that's also because philosophy will bypass ideology, right? It will bypass.
It will check ideology. Like
Yeah,
no
it
one
check
can help but
not
have
bypass, but like
some
share,
ideological invite.
of
It will
course.
bypass it in the sense of you will not be an
You
automaton.
won't be only seeing it through. You will be able to recognize that you actually use
You
ideology
can
for
dwell
some
in
of
the
your
girdle point.
decisions. Yeah,
It becomes
yeah,
possible to dwell in the
yeah.
girdle point.
You could say I have that, and this is the reality of the experience.
Yes, yes,
Okay, let's. And then what do I? How do I interpret what I observe?
yes,
And that's also going to require philosophy too.
yes. That's correct. So what I would just say is you need to philosophize your life regardless.
Yeah, yeah.
Because you can't check the health of your life portfolio. Nor could you do the work of analyzing the ambiguities, taking your energy, and
Mhm.
doing everything. Yes,
Really quick, I think also there's often, even when you're, I don't know, thinking about systematic things, maybe you were once part of that, sometimes it's easy to see things with rose-colored glasses, or um, just because maybe you tend to be like a glass half full type of
sure.
person, so you're like, oh yeah, it's great, but there can often be an on like going back to the invisible sort of thing. There's interestingly, and it's not going to be a good analogy for me to use that word here, but I do think there's often there is a cost, some often to somebody who doesn't usually get
Yes.
um,
Yes.
accounted for. Like,
I mean, it's just probability theory that a portfolio that is not examined will have, well, cost,
yeah, yeah,
and can lose quite a lot.
yeah,
So yeah.
and that can become invisible. But it's interesting because the way systems are is that they they almost it's I almost feel like they do something because of their like logistical stuff. They almost like literally make it invisible. Like it's not, you can't even see it because most of the time you're not even like looking at it.
Yeah.
Um,
The whole point of a system is for it to work without you thinking about it.
yeah,
Because it wouldn't be a system if you had to think about it. It would
yeah,
be a negotiation. It would
yeah,
be organic or
yeah,
something.
yeah.
So,
Yeah. So I guess I'm just thinking about that too. But maybe somebody could say, well, but you can't say that this like invisible cost is the system's fault. You know?
well, I mean, but that's the problem. Like, it's never the system's fault, so you're left alone with it. So,
Mm,
at the end of the day, whatever your life ends up, you're going to be left with it. So
yeah.
so I would want to think about it. If the buck's going to stop with me, then I really want to have a sense of where this is going. So you should philosophize your life. Like, if you say, well, yeah, at the end of the day, it's going to be all my fault, but I've decided not to think about it. Well, that's maybe you get lucky,
Yeah.
and you really may get lucky,
Yeah.
but have at it. Um, have at it. For more by OG Rose, please visit ogrose.com, YouTube, Instagram, Spotify, X, Amazon, all reviews, etc., and so forth. But
Yeah. Would love to
enjoy.
hear your thoughts if you want
Yeah,
to add
yeah,
some
yeah.
thoughts
Enjoy
in the
speaking of this
comments.
topic of motivation and actually getting to the nitty gritty of
Great.
addressing the
Yeah.
mystery of motivation
Yeah.
is very,
Very
very important.
interesting.
So we'll have to talk more about it.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Thank you,
All the
babe.
best.
Thank you all. Thank you so much. Have a good day.